first impressions count. And when you bring someone onto your team, have you ever really looked at and audited what are the first impressions that this person is going to have when they join and when they start working with you, or even before they start working with you? Now, before we get into this video, please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. It helps us to reach more people, to help more people. Now that you have definitely liked and subscribed, we are going to be breaking this down today into 3 key areas. From when someone accepts a role with you, on their first day, and in their first week. So we're going to break down the experience into those 3 key functional areas. So to begin with, and I've got a little notepad here. If you see me looking away, I've got a few notes to make this one run a little bit smoother, make sure I don't miss anything. I'm sure we've all been there. The first thing is when you sit down with that person and you sign that contract, or you get that signed contract back, what is the clarity that you give them about the path moving forwards? And what I mean by this is, do you have a start date in mind? And is that flexible to work with that person? And getting that laid out from the start so that you have an expectation of them and they have an expectation of you, and we're understanding that. So from the start, absolute clarity. So set the start date as soon as possible so that they can plan. Next up, explain what needs to be organized in between now and the first day. So you should have a whole list of everything that needs to be organized at your clinic between when they sign that contract and the first day. You may have to get some pictures for socials and the website. You might need a bio from them. And these may be things that you want before they start. So we need to make sure we're really clear, and maybe even have a list of documents, something that we can send through to them or give them a physical copy. But the more organized here we are, the better. So making sure that we understand what needs to be organized, uniform, those kinds of things. Next, what will you organize for them? So out of everything that needs to be done before we kick off day 1, what are you going to organize? And I would have that on the list. So if we get the list of these are the key things that need to be done, what am I going to do for you? And when am I going to have it to you? And so I would have key dates next to the things that you're going to do, and make sure that you stay accountable to those dates. Conversely, what do you expect of them during this time? And what are the key dates that you need things done by? Because pulling it back, what we're looking for here is to give them clarity, give them accountability, and make sure when we come in on day 1, we've done what we said we're going to do. They've done what they said they were going to do. And we can really start on the front foot working together. The next thing after they accept the role is explain to them what is their first day and their first week going to look like. So actually clearly map that out so that they can understand it. And hey, if you've got this written down and you can actually map out that first week, what they're going to be doing through each hour of each day, and give them that clarity, I think that's fantastic. And not only that, but it's the little things. It's when you come on your first day, this is the entrance you use. Not every business use the same entrance when you walk in for a job interview as when you walk in as a team member. Think about those little things. What if they rock up a little bit early on their first day and no one's there yet? What do they do? Okay, so you want to give them as much clarity as possible to make them feel as comfortable as possible. And also thinking, what should they wear? What should they bring? These sorts of things. If you're going to take them out for lunch on their first day, let them know ahead of time so that they're not bringing their own lunch on that day. As you can see here, all we bring it back to is giving them clarity and certainty around what that's going to look like. And it also lets them know that, hey, we take this seriously here. We take this very seriously, and we want to make sure it's a great experience for you. So jot all those down, rate yourself out of 10 for what is the experience between when someone accepts the role to when they start their first day. The next key thing to audit is what happens on their first day. So are you making sure that you introduce them to everyone in the team, make a personal introduction, go out of your way to make sure that they feel extremely welcome? I don't know if you've ever felt this before, but I've been working in teams before where on my first day there, they kind of said, yep, you're on your own. And I'm a bit extroverted, so I can go and introduce myself to people. But I see other people who maybe aren't as comfortable. and they kind of sit in the corner and they don't know, or someone walks past and they look busy, so I'm not going to talk to them. It looks really uncomfortable. So making sure that you are really aware of, how can I make this person feel as comfortable as possible? Show them the clinic. Show them where their space is. Where do they put their things when they come in? Where can they get changed? Where are the toilets? Where is the kitchen? Where is everything in the kitchen? Where is everything in the room that they're going to use? Where is everything that, if it's not in the room, where would they find it? And what are the expectations of cleanliness in the room, in the other areas? Thinking about all of these things, which I know it can be overwhelming. And maybe if you have a bit of a document that helps them to understand this, maybe even a bit of a site map or a room map for where everything's kept in the room, or if you do have, say, cupboards where all of the equipment may be, let them know the best way to find it. How is it stored? Is there a logical process behind this that they can follow if they need to find something? And what happens if they can't find something? Who should they ask? Who should they talk to? So again, these are key things that make people feel more comfortable on their first day. And another thing that, just one last bit on that, if you're giving someone a space, can they make it their own? Can they bring in some pictures of their friends and family and their dog? Is that acceptable in your workplace, or is that not acceptable? Because again, I've gone into workplaces before and I didn't know, should I or should I not bring a photo of my partner or my pet? Is that acceptable here? Is that not acceptable? Will there be other people using this room and they'd be kind of weird if they had my stuff in there? Help them to understand that so that they have clarity. They may want to do that, they may not want to do that, but again, make it clear. Not only that, but you can show them around the area. Are there local cafes that they can go to for lunch or for coffee? Are there different businesses around that you have a great relationship with? Take the opportunity to not just show them the clinic, but show them the local area. Go for a walk, go have a coffee, show them around, make them feel welcome. Give them that certainty that they're in the right place and that you're there to support them. Now, when you're going through the induction, remember, it doesn't have to be all at once. I know you've got so much information you want to give them and you may not have heaps of time, but the longer you can spread this out over, if you can spread the induction out over the first week, so you're not trying to do everything day one in that first hour or two. And I know I've done it before. I've been busy trying to cram everything in. And at the end of it, I can't ever remember what we've talked through, right? Let alone them remembering what we've talked through. It just gets really challenging. So making sure that you can try and spread that out, and it's okay to repeat yourself. You may say a lot of the same things over a few days just to reinforce the learnings. You may show them where something is more than once because it's likely that they may forget. That's okay. What we want is we want to give them, again, coming back to that certainty that they're in the right place and you're there to support them. You also want to make sure that you reflect on that plan, going back to the plan, ideally, that we give them when they sign that contract and we look ahead. Show them the plan for the first week. What does it look like? Will they be shadowing people? And when will they be shadowing? And who will they be shadowing? And what kind of patients may they be watching? Or are they an admin team member? And they're not going to be shadowing the clinicians, but they're going to be shadowing senior admin team members or the practice manager. Make that really clear. Help them to understand what's coming ahead throughout the week. Get rid of that anxiety. It can be really hard to start a new job, to start a new role. It can feel really uncomfortable. And I think sometimes we forget that, especially as business owners, because we're so comfortable in our own environment that we think, how could anyone not feel comfortable here, right? Take them off-site. One thing that we love to do was on that first day, go off-site, get a really nice lunch, sit down and just get to know them a little bit, reflect on the induction that you've done in the morning, start to understand them as a human, as well as some of their goals and what they would like to achieve in their time with you. And we also want to really reinforce what are the expectations that you have of them at the clinic. And that's key because this is a key part of culture, is people understanding what is expected of them. Because if there are clear expectations, and we could call them standards within your business, within your clinic, then people are very clear on what they need to do. And how do you know what the standards are within your business? If you look around, it's what your team are doing. You have a cultural standards of how things are done. Now, if people often rock up 5 minutes late and it's just like, don't worry about it, that becomes a standard, a cultural standard. If everyone is always there 10 minutes before their shift in order to get ready for their first client, that becomes a cultural standard. And what you'll find is that when people join the team, they may get there 10 minutes early on their first day. They want to make sure they're prepared and they're ready to go. But in 3 months' time, you may look back and go, why is this person now rocking up to work late? And a lot of the time, it's a regression to the mean of the cultural standards. They're looking around and going, what does everyone else do? And then they follow that. You'll also want to understand their expectations of you as a leader. How do they want to be supported? How do they want to be challenged? How do they want to be communicated to? How do they want feedback? The more you can understand their expectations of you, the more you can either make sure you meet those expectations or have the opportunity to align those with your own to make sure that when we start, our expectations are 100% aligned. Now, moving past the first day to the first week, a key thing that I like to emphasize and re-emphasize is the opportunity to be shadowing senior team members. Now, this can be for your admin team as well as for your therapy team, making sure that they're working with people who are living by those standards that you want set. And so picking, well, I might get to work with this therapist here and actually directing them. I want you to really focus how Ryan rebooks and his communication and how he's able to help take someone on that journey and give them certainty at the end of the consult. How does he rebook and where does he rebook? And actually give them specific things to look for, to write down and take notes on. So rather than just watch the consult as a whole, pick out what you know this person does really well and get them to see it and reflect on it. Same thing for admin. I'll use the example of my practice manager, Sammy, business owner now, actually. Now, Sammy on the front desk had this amazing ability to connect with anyone and everyone that walked in the front door. And honestly, when she pulled back from working on the desk, she started as a receptionist, became practice manager, and then director and business owner. But when she pulled back from working on the desk, clients they missed her so much because she just connected with them. And so if I was getting a new admin team member to shadow Sammy, I'd say just watch how she connects with people, watch how she communicates, listen to the words she uses and how she says them, and also look at what does she remember about these people. It's the little things that count. And getting them to write down and actually take notes on those specifics that you know that person absolutely nails. Now, we've already talked expectations, but we want to make sure that we can clearly map these out. And so for us, one of the key things we do in that first week, but most likely not on the first day, is to set up their expectations dashboard and set up their KPIs and help them to understand the why or the reason behind each number. Because numbers are just numbers, but every number tells a story. If someone has high cancellations, what is the story or what are the possible stories behind this? It could be our ability to communicate and connect with someone. It could be our confidence. It could be our ability to make someone feel safe. It could be our ability to make someone feel heard. There are a myriad of different reasons why a cancel number could be a little bit too high, but helping people to understand that we're not here to just look at a number. We're here to understand the story behind that number, because when we understand that, we understand how we can help you to become a better therapist. Then what we would look to do is to map out their ideal client. When we're working with a therapist, one thing that we love to do is understand who is it that lights them up. And not everyone will know this just yet. You may have some new grads that join your team who go, I don't know, I'm not sure. I want to see a little bit of everything before I say that this is my ideal client. And that's fine. And you might map out 2 or 3 different types of clients they'd like to see more of. You may have a more senior therapist or even a younger therapist who's dead keen. I was dead keen on working with shoulders. I loved it. Who's super keen on working with something. Map that out. And then once you've done this, it allows you the opportunity to go, well, where can we find more of those people? Who could be some possible referrers for this? If we use the shoulder example, are there any local baseball clubs? Are there any local tennis clubs? Are there any local gyms that we could be attending? Thinking of where would people have this injury or this issue that I want to deal with? And conversely, if you work in pediatrics and people may have a specific disability that they enjoy working with, where would we be able to connect with referrers of those ideal clients? Which leads us into the final 3 points. Don't be afraid to go over things more than once. There'll be lots of things you go over 2, 3, 4 times. That's not a bad thing. It helps to reinforce the learning. And it's much better than someone feeling like, oh, I don't want to ask a question because I feel it's silly. It's better to go over it a little bit more. And you can pre-frame that, hey, we're going to go over things more than once because we know that you can't possibly remember all this. There's going to be so much information that comes in these first few days. The next one is to get feedback at the end of the week. Can you create a feedback form where you can get real feedback and ask them to be as candid as possible? And how I would like to frame this is I would really appreciate if you could give us some open and honest feedback here about your experience from when you joined our team, when you signed the contract to now. Because what we want to do is we want to continue to refine and improve this experience for everyone who comes after you. And in order for us to deliver a truly world-class experience, we need you to be able to give us real feedback. So pre-frame it like that, because otherwise on someone's first week, they're going to be like, oh, everything was fantastic. It was all good. Loved every part of it. Because they don't feel comfortable to give you that open, honest feedback yet. They're only 5 days in. How could they? So try and pre-frame that as best as possible. And once you get that information, to reflect and refine from the second that someone signs that paper through to the end of the first week. Now, exercise. What I'd love you to do right now, if you do have a pen and paper, something to write on, is to actually go, what would be a 0-star experience? I want you to write down what would be the most horrible experience that you can imagine, or maybe you've experienced this a little bit, from the second someone signs that paper until the end of the first week. On one side of the paper, I want you to write down everything. Break it down to role accepted to first day, and then the first week, those 3 key areas, left-hand side of the paper. And then what I want you to do is draw a line down the middle. On the other side of the paper, write down the exact opposite to what you wrote down. And this is an interesting exercise because sometimes it can be hard to think of what would make this amazing. But often we can think of what would make this really terrible. What would make this horrific, horrible, uncomfortable, awkward? What would make you anxious to do that? And maybe you've experienced some of these as well. And then all we do is we go, what is the exact opposite of this? And I would love to hear in the comments below, my friends, how did you find doing this exercise? And what's one change that you'll make in your clinic from the second someone accepts the role until the end of the first week? And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Like I said, helps us to help more people, to reach more people, and to make an impact in clinics for good. I'll see you in the next video, my friends.